Hello and welcome to Mulch, with me your host Rebecca Anning-Brown. This is a weekly podcast for flower farmers who want to build a confident flower farming practice that reflects the lifestyle that you want now and in the future. Each week I'll share conversation and tips to nurture and grow you and your flower farm. I'll open conversations that flower farmers find difficult to talk about, provide approaches that will help you to make decisions, chuckle at the idiosyncrasies of our work, and always be real and honest about my own work as a flower farmer. My goal is to help you to grow a curious, confident and grounded flower farming practice that flourishes as a business that you love and are proud to shout about. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you hear, please do leave a review and share the podcast with your flower farming friends. It really does help to grow a confident and successful flower farming community. Good morning and welcome back to Mulch. If you are listening for the first time, a particularly warm welcome to you. I hope that you find Mulch to be a useful place to grow your plans and intentions for your flower farm. My name's Rebecca. I am a flower farmer in Leeds, West Yorkshire, and my business name is Silver Grey Foliage. To see what we're up to on a day-to-day basis, I say that with some hesitance because I haven't actually been on Instagram that much recently, but to see what we're up to on a day-to-day basis, Instagram is the place where I am the most often, and we are at Silver Grey Foliage. Do head over and give us a little follow. For those of you who are in the UK, this Monday is a bank holiday Monday, and the podcast is going out in the morning this week, so I'm really hoping that you will have had a chance to spend some time with family and friends, even if that's a quick cup of tea, a telephone call, a Zoom, or whatever method it is that you have to stay in touch with your nearest and dearest. Because the evidence shows that it's that connection with important people in your worlds that is the most important thing for happiness and joy. And I genuinely wish you all great happiness and great joy. Before I move on to the meat and potatoes of today's episode, I wanted to talk to you about the Flower Farmers course that Antony and I are writing. It will start in September and the doors are going to open for enrolment in July. It will run for 12 months and the curriculum will cover business, money, pricing, finance, marketing, growing, propagating, wellness, self-development and more. We want to build a comprehensive learning space, and we want this to be a small community where you feel welcome and where you feel able to ask questions, share successes and triumphs, give openly to your fellow growers, and to maximize your progress, in part by feeding off the energy and excitement of the group. If this is something that you are interested in, then there's a link in the show notes below. The link is also on our website, and I'd encourage you to click it and to fill in your details. The course is aimed at those of you who have at least 1 year of growing under your belt, because we want to help you to scale and build your business so that you have the knowledge, skills and confidence by the end of the year or before to make leaps towards a full-time or close to full-time career in flower farming. I know that sounds scary, but if this is what you want, then taking control of when this happens is absolutely preferable to not reaching your goal because of burnout or being forced into taking that decision in other ways. So I'm telling you about it now because then you can make a decision to start putting aside some pennies and saving towards this investment in your business, because we'd love to work with you and we'd love to help you to get on and grow. So on the theme of growth, today's episode is about scaling your business. It's a phrase that I have used, and it's a phrase that I do use currently and I will use again in the future. However, I wanted to make some distinctions today about what scaling actually means for us as flower farmers, and also to share a tool to help you to do this in your own business in the right way for you. And the reason that this is important is because flower farming is not the same as other businesses. Scaling does not necessarily require more staff. It does not necessarily involve needing more space. It's unlikely to involve a huge amount of outsourcing. And sadly, more plants are often the final part of the plan. I make that statement knowing that in the background many of you will groan, as I did when I came to this realisation that actually just buying more plants is not going to help me to increase the size of our business. The reason that I'm talking about this is because the more I speak to other business owners, the more I realise that flower farming is a rare breed in the business world. There are incredibly few businesses, especially in this day and age, where the product is created, made, marketed, and used by the same person, by the same entity. And as flower farmers, we literally see our product from its tiny thought as a seed through to its finishing product as a bouquet or installation. And yes, we do buy seeds, bulbs, plants. We buy those initial components. But if you just buy them and put them together, then nothing happens. Whereas if you buy the components to make an electronic item and put them in the right box, in the right order, something will happen. It will create a something. That doesn't work with seeds and bulbs and plants and foliage or whatever it is that you grow. You have to nurture it, love it, grow it, feed it, water it, cut it at its best, and then sell it. It's the whole process from beginning to end. And as a flower farmer, you use your skills and intuition to make your flowers and foliage happen. So what we do is special, and it's unique, and it's pretty rare. And so I really want to remind you of those things in today's episode so that you take a moment to be proud of what you do. For those of you who are Harry Potter fans, and we're big Harry Potter fans in the Silver Grey household, you may be familiar with the Engorgio charm. So I think the charm is first used by Mad-Eye Mooney, who isn't actually Mad-Eye Mooney at that point, but that's a minor point. And he uses it to make the spider bigger before he practices the unforgivable curses in front of the class. The charm represents how most people in business, have been taught to see scaling a business, i.e. you start with a product or a method or a model and you simply repeat it, the same thing, in larger quantities. Now, as a business that is involved from start to finish, as we are in flower farming, if this is the approach that you take, then the only way to scale is to have more hands on deck, to employ more staff. And that might well be what you want to do. However, the purpose of this episode is to encourage you to think about other ways of scaling. And the reason that's important is because more members of staff means more mouths to feed, more people to be responsible for. And I know that last week's episode was about taking on help in your flower farm. And I know that we have just taken on increased help, so from 1 day to 3 days a week. But there's a limitation to that. It's one person from 1 day to 3 to help us to scale, not necessarily in any of the ways that are described in this episode. But that's only part of our scaling process, and it's after we've done all sorts of other things first to get us to that point. Okay, so I guess the key thing that I'm trying to get across is that more hands on deck isn't necessarily the smartest way to grow your flower farm. I often, rather than always, like to work through examples to illustrate what I'm talking about. So for this podcast, we're going to use something called the Grow model. Now, in honesty, I didn't know of the Grow model before Antony and I put together this episode. However, when I talked him through how I think, and broke it down, I guess, into the way that we've got from 0 flowers to 80,000 stems last year to however many stems that I would love to sell this year. He said, well, that fits this model, and that would be a really nice framework to hang it off. So that's what we're going to do. So GROW stands for goal, reality, options, and then will or willing to do. Being sensible, we're going to start at the G for goal, because it's not just goal. It could be goal, vision, intention, aim, plan. And it's that thing that frames everything that comes next. So if you're listening to the podcast and you've never listened to it before, I'll be talking a lot about your flower farming practice, because I believe that flower farming is no different to other profession, and that it's about a practice and it's an evolution. It's about learning and change of practice. And for me, it's imperative, and again, if you listen to last week's episode, then imperative is a word that reminds me of my dad. It was one of his favourite words. But it's imperative that your goal is something that you want, not something that you feel you should be doing, because shoulds make petulant and defiant children, and that's rarely constructive. Okay, so your goal, your intention, your vision, your aim, however you choose to kind of frame that G at the beginning of this model, has to be something that you want. So when you're planning to scale your practice, what are you wanting to happen? So that might be that you want more of a particular customer base, or more variety to work with in your bouquets, or a longer season, or an earlier start to your season, or a later finish to your season. It might be to become known as an expert grower on a particular flower, or it might be that you're after more human interaction. Now, note that what I haven't said in any of this is more money. Traditionally, we see the purpose of scaling anything as being for the purpose of earning more money. Now, listen and follow me through, because like all of you, I absolutely, sadly, do need more money, because our household bills are going up, even though our lifestyle hasn't changed at all. And all of those things that I've suggested above will lead to more income when you do them well. But when you put money as the goal, for many of us, it becomes hard to be inspired. It's harder to be creative. It's harder to be enthused and motivated, because the hard output is pennies and pounds, bits of paper, a plastic card, however you see money, rather than something that lights a flame. So, because like most of us, our household bills are going up, I'm not saying this because I don't think money's important. In fact, far from it. I think many flower farmers underestimate their value and therefore under-earn for what they're doing. But I really want you to focus on the what and the why and the what you want as that conduit, as that route to the money, rather than the money as being the focus in the first place, because I think that's a much, much, much harder way to grow your business and to remain in love with it. And that sounds very soft and floaty and la-di-da, but it's Monday morning on a bank holiday, so I'm going to go with soft and floaty and la-di-da. So the goals that I've suggested, and they are just a few that Antony and I have picked out of a hat when we were writing this episode, are there as goals that will lead you to more money, but that's not the focus. So because I love to provoke thought and intention in our listeners, I'm going to pick the concept of season extension to move us through this model. I've picked this because there seems to be an expectation that everyone should want to extend their season at both ends. You may guess, because I've said that I'm not convinced that this is very sensible or very healthy. Whether you're new to flower farming or you've been doing it for a while, you will know that there is no such thing in reality as a quiet time in our world. And so a longer season at both ends means even less opportunity to rest. And so I wonder whether it is healthier to be planning our businesses, our flower farming practice, so that they extend at the beginning or at the end. And for each of us, our preferences are going to be different. I'm really sorry if you can hear the washing machine in the background, but this is a real household with a real family. So back to season extension. I do wonder whether it is healthier, and it's something that we're considering, to extend your season in terms of depth and breadth at one end or the other, so that there is a bit more space for you to be able to rest, recuperate, breathe, in what is a physically and mentally and emotionally demanding job. So with this in mind, let's say that my goal is to scale my offering in autumn so that I have more variety and availability for my wholesale customers as the days get cooler and shorter. So using this goal, I can then move on to the R, which is for reality. So my reality is that in our first season, we ended the season in August because I had nothing left. I had nothing to cut, nothing to make bouquets with. And that was okay. It was our first season. I cannot expect it to be going to November. Our second and third seasons petered out in kind of mid-September for a number of reasons. One, we'd reached the end of our kind of abundance. And two, we were exhausted. And then in our fourth season, we had flowers and foliage going through to October, but not necessarily the variety that I wanted. And you can see from the progression that we are heading in the right direction, but that we're not quite there yet. And that's okay, because these things take time. Unless you have an abundance of cash and multiple hands for free working for you, it takes time to learn what will be helpful to grow your season or to extend that part of your season, and to learn what will grow well for you and also what your customers want. Because there's no point growing things if they don't serve your customer. Then it's a vanity exercise, and when you're running a business, vanity doesn't really come into it. So now that I've outlined our reality, where we have been and where we're headed towards, I can think about the O for options. Well, for this example, I think this is it's a nice easy one. So the options are that I could research varieties that are hardy enough for where we grow to still be flowering in leads. Or I can grow from seed or buy the plants that will fulfill the need by just popping along to a garden centre or going online. I could become a specialist in a couple of plants or flowers or foliage for that late end of the season. So examples might be chrysanthemums, rudbeckia, echinacea. What else? I could maybe invest in more covered space so that we could extend the season for our roses and dahlia. I could increase the range of flowers that we dry in summer so that we can offer textured a textured interest for our florists, especially those who work in mixed mediums, so they're mixing fresh and dried flowers and foliage, so that we can offer them variety, but not necessarily that we're directly cutting at that time. I mean, I could go on, but my intention here is to come up with a range of ways that I could achieve our desired outcome for extending our autumn season. Specifically, what I want to point out here is that what I haven't done is come up with new or different ways of working that would increase our income. Because whilst this is possible, it only really works if what you're adding is something that you want to do, it's something that you're interested in. So if workshops, flower arranging, wreath workshops, whatever it is, are things that you enjoy doing and that you want to do, then by all means add those in at that point in the season. But if it becomes solely a means to increasing your income, so back to that money thing again, then your heart won't be in it. And even if it works and it improves the cash flow, which inevitably it will if you follow some basic steps, it won't bring you joy, and it will make it harder for you to be enthusiastic about it and also all the other jobs and work that you need to be doing around that time of year. So I really encourage you to be cautious about adding to your methods, to your offering, things that don't fit within what you want to do, what you enjoy doing, and your core offering. All right, so we are now heading to that final stage. We've done G, R, and O. We're on to W. Now, I almost called the W the most important stage. And in many ways it is, because it's where you take action. However, I'd like you to think about this in a different way. So if you consider the G phase to be where you identify what you enjoy doing, what you want, what you enjoy, where you want to be. And then the R, the reality phase, helps you to work out where you are now and why you're not where you want to be. The O, the options phase, is about creativity. It's about seeing the freedom that you have in your flower farming practice to grow your business your way. And so the W, or will or willing, is about knowing yourself. It's about making choices about the method or combinations of methods that you want to use and know that you can commit to, either skills that you have or learning that you want to do, so that you can help your flower farm to get on and grow. So I really struggled to record the W or the will or willing for this example. This is a classical example of that concept of should, because extending our autumn season isn't something that I'm particularly interested in. We have a deadline for the end of our season. It's October. It's October half term, and that gives us half term off with the kids before we start our winter season. So for me, I think we're just about there. We've got enough going on flowers and foliage wise up until October to keep me happy and to keep my customers happy. And then for us, there is a natural pause before we start our foliage season. And so I found it really hard to pick out the W's, the things that I will or will be willing to do or learn to do in order to grow our practice. And it's a really good example. When your heart's not in it, when you're doing things because you feel you should, it's so difficult to feel enthused or encouraged. It makes the process hard. But when you are focusing on the will or the willing for things that you want to do, it's easy. It's easy to see the options that are right for you. It's easy to reach that place of flow where you're just doing it because you enjoy it and you want to, rather than because you have to. So I'm going to leave the model there. And I think I've highlighted its strengths and its flaws, and also the strengths in wants and the flaws in shoulds, purely by going through it myself with a fictitious example. Okay. The key thing is that when you use this model and you put it into practice, because nobody else is going to do it for you in your business, it will help you to scale your flower farm. And in turn, it will increase your offering and your income. It will help you to create your unique method and an approach that will work for you, rather than trying to emulate or follow the paths of other flower farmers. It's not a matter of right or wrong, and you may well take inspiration from other flower farmers. The key thing is to ensure that you're setting yourself up for success by creating your best fit. And this is a lot of how Antony and I work when we're mentoring, and it's a lot of how we work in our business. I often say that I don't care what other people are doing. That's not true. I do care what other people are doing. But I am running my business, and it's incredibly important, having worked for 20, 30, whatever number of years for other people, to make sure that what I'm doing is what I want to do, in order for me to remain passionate about it and therefore to drive our income in that way. It's so important. So we tell you what we do. We share our methods. We share how we get from A to B. But more importantly, we look for and we listen to what you are doing, what really excites you, to help you to pick your method and to set that in motion so that it will get the best out of you. Because you'll never get the best out of you by doing it our way. And that's a real skill. And I'm gonna shout my own trumpet just for a moment. It's a real skill, but it's a skill that I've gathered from the other jobs that I've done. It's not one that I've learnt overnight. It's one that's been practiced in other roles and in other jobs. And it's less about knowledge and it's more about observation and skill and awareness and creativity. And that's a real strength that I bring to the mentoring, teaching, nurturing process. All right, that's it for today's episode. If you need help with your business now, then click on the mentoring links so that we can get you unstuck now. If you want to grow your flower farming practice in the 2024 to 2025 season, yes, I'm talking about 2025, then sign up to receive information about this below. It's important to know that when you sign up here, we're not offering you emails for anything else. You will only get emails from us about the flower farming course once it's advertised. If you want emails about the rest of things that we do, or whatever else is going on, then you need to sign up for those separately, and that's so that we don't clog your inbox. Though, to be honest, if you're signed up to our newsletter, you'll realise that I'm not going to clog up your inbox, because I very rarely send emails these days, and that's mainly because I feel like the podcast is the best route for me. If you think that other flower farmers will find this episode useful, then follow, rate, and review the podcast, please, wherever you are listening, and share it in your social media stories. It helps to share anything that you have found helpful, and hopefully will help other flower farmers to get on and grow. And finally, I sleep really badly. So if it's within your gift and you find what you hear on Mulch useful, then please buy me a coffee. The link for coffee buying is also in the show notes. I'll be back next Monday with another episode about flower farming in practice. Until then, thank you for listening and have a fabulous week. Rebecca.
Thank you for listening to Mulch. I hope that you found it useful. To find the show notes, head back to our website where you'll find links to all the things that I've been talking about in today's episode. If you're on Instagram, you can find us at Silver Grey Foliage. I would appreciate it so much if you were able to share this episode in your Instagram stories. And if you are able to leave a review, it really will help more people to get on and grow. I'll be back with you next Monday to talk about more flower farming in practice. Rebecca.